I didn't mean to say it. Not like that. But once the words were out, there was no taking them back. The kitchen was dead silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. My husband Nathan stood on the other side of the counter, his eyes locked on mine. Our two kids, Mia, 8, and Lucas, 5, sat frozen at the dinner table, their forks hanging midair, eyes darting between us. The tension was thick, unbearable. "You're a bad father," I had spat out, my voice cutting through the air like a knife. I didn't even know where it came from. One second, we were arguing about something stupid, maybe how he forgot to pack Lucas's lunch or how he was late picking up Mia from ballet. And the next, I had let it slip. No, that's a lie. I didn't let it slip. I threw it at him like a weapon. Nathan blinked once. Twice. His jaw clenched, his grip tightening on the back of the chair he had just pulled out. But he didn't yell. Didn't snap back like I expected. Instead, he inhaled deeply, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed something thick in his throat. Mia looked down at her plate, suddenly uninterested in her food. Lucas, my baby boy, tilted his head, confusion written all over his little face. "Mommy, why did you say that?" he asked, his voice small. That's when it hit me. What I had done. What I had just shown my kids. I opened my mouth, scrambling for something, anything to undo the damage, but Nathan was already stepping back from the table. He didn't slam his plate down. Didn't storm out. Just quietly pushed his chair back, nodded once, and walked away. No words. No anger. Just acceptance. And somehow, that was so much worse. Mia's lower lip trembled as she watched him leave, and Lucas turned to me, waiting for an explanation I couldn't give. I wanted to call after Nathan, tell him I didn't mean it, that he wasn't a bad father, just frustrating sometimes, that I was tired, that I had been feeling like I was doing everything alone. But I just stood there, frozen. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of the front door softly closing. Nathan was gone, and the silence that followed crushed me. Nathan wasn't always like this. I mean, he's always been quiet, the steady one, the reliable one, the calm to my storm. But in the last few months, something had changed. He seemed distant, like he was physically there, but his mind was somewhere else. I noticed it in small ways at first. The way he didn't laugh as much, how he seemed more tired than usual, how his answers to my questions became shorter, like he was just checking a box instead of actually talking to me. At first, I told myself it was stress. Work had been crazy for him lately, with back-to-back deadlines and late nights in his home office. Maybe he was just overwhelmed. But then it started creeping into everything. He used to sit on the couch with the kids, helping them with their puzzles or watching cartoons with them, even when he was exhausted. Lately, though, he barely had the energy to pretend to pay attention. And with me, it felt like we were just coexisting. We used to talk about everything. Our dreams, our fears, stupid internet memes. Now, our conversations were mostly about bills, schedules, and which one of us was picking up the kids that day. I hated it. So yeah, maybe I was already on edge when we sat down for dinner that night. Maybe I was already feeling like I was doing everything alone. Like I was the only one remembering doctor's appointments, homework assignments, and which nights Mia had ballet and which nights Lucas had soccer. And when he showed up late again, I snapped. I barely looked at him when he sat down at the table. "Nice of you to show up," I muttered under my breath, stabbing at my salad with my fork. Nathan just sighed, rubbing his temples. "I got stuck in traffic, Erin. You act like I'm doing this on purpose." I scoffed, shaking my head. "You always have an excuse, don't you?" The air between us thickened, tension settling like a storm cloud. "Mom, can we eat?" Mia's small voice cut through the moment, and I felt a pang of guilt. But I wasn't done. Because deep down, I wanted to hurt him. "I'm just saying," I continued, ignoring the warning glance he shot me. "It must be nice to just show up when it's convenient. Meanwhile, I'm the one juggling everything else." Nathan exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "Here we go." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means this. Every. Single. Time." His voice was still calm, but there was an edge to it now. I screw up once, and suddenly I'm the worst husband. The worst father. I let out a dry laugh. Well, if the shoe fits. The second I said it, I knew I'd crossed a line. His expression shifted. Just barely, but I caught it. A flicker of something I hadn't seen before. Hurt. But instead of fighting back, instead of giving me the reaction I was expecting, he just looked at me. And for some reason, that pissed me off even more. So I pushed harder. "You know what, Nathan?" I said, my voice sharp. "Maybe if you actually acted like a father instead of some extra guest in this house, I wouldn't have to do everything myself." I heard Mia inhale sharply. Lucas looked between us, confused. Nathan just stood there. He didn't yell, didn't argue, didn't even defend himself. And then he said something I wasn't prepared for. "You don't actually see me, do you?" I blinked, caught off guard. "What?" His expression didn't change. "You don't see how much I try, how much I give. You only see what I don't do." I opened my mouth, ready to argue, but nothing came out. Because deep down, a part of me knew he was right. And that scared me more than anything. I didn't know what to say. Nathan's words hung in the air, heavy, unmoving. "You don't actually see me, do you?" I wanted to fire back. To say something, anything, to defend myself. But for the first time in a long time, I couldn't. Because if I admitted he was right, then I'd have to admit that I'd been wrong. So instead, I did what I always did. I doubled down. I scoffed, rolling my eyes. "Oh, so now you're the victim?" Nathan exhaled through his nose, rubbing his temple like he was trying to keep his patience. "That's not what I said, Aaron." "But it's what you meant." "No," he said, shaking his head. "What I meant was that no matter what I do, it's never enough for you." I felt something sharp twist in my chest, but I shoved it down. "Oh, poor you," I snapped. "The suffering husband who has to deal with his nagging wife." His jaw clenched, but he still didn't yell. And for some reason, that pissed me off even more. "Do you even realize how much I do for this family?" I continued, pushing harder like I needed to get a rise out of him. "I handle the school schedules, the doctor's appointments, the birthday parties. I know Mia's best friend's favorite color. I know Lucas still sleeps with that stuffed bear even though he pretends he doesn't. And you? You just show up when it's convenient for you. So yeah, Nathan, excuse me for being tired of doing this alone." He let out a slow, deep breath and nodded. Just one nod, like he was confirming something to himself. And then he pulled out his phone, set it on the table, and pushed it toward me. I frowned. "What is this?" "Lucas's pediatrician's number," he said. "Mia's ballet instructor, the contact for the soccer league, their teacher's email." I just stared at the screen. "I know all of it, Aaron." His voice was calm, measured, too calm. "I always have." Something cold settled in my stomach. "I don't say anything because you don't want me to," he continued. "You like being the one in control. You like being the one who does it all. Because if I step in, if I help, you don't trust me to do it right." "That's not true," I shot back too fast. His lips pressed together. "Really? Then tell me. When's the last time you let me handle something without double-checking it? When's the last time you asked for help instead of just assuming I wouldn't give it?" I opened my mouth, closed it. My heart was pounding, but not from anger anymore, from something else. Because deep down, I knew he wasn't wrong. I had spent so much time resenting him for not helping that I never actually gave him the chance. Nathan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not perfect, Aaron, but neither are you." I should have apologized. I should have said something, anything to fix this. But my pride wouldn't let me. So instead, I rolled my eyes, grabbed my plate, and muttered, "Whatever," before walking to the sink. Nathan didn't stop me. He didn't say another word. He just got up, grabbed his keys, and left. Nathan didn't come back that night. Or the next morning. I told myself I didn't care. That he was just pouting. That he'd cool off, come home, and we'd go back to normal. But by noon the next day, the normalcy I was waiting for never came. His absence felt different this time. I tried to push the thought away, but it lingered like a shadow. I went through the motions, making breakfast for the kids, dropping them off at school, responding to emails at work. But all day I kept glancing at my phone, waiting for a text that never came. By the time I picked up Mia and Lucas from school, I could tell they felt it too. "Where's Daddy?" Lucas asked from the back seat, his little voice uncertain. "He's at work." I answered automatically. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. Mia was quiet for a long time. Too long. Then, just as we pulled into the driveway, she spoke. He left because of what you said, didn't he? The words punched the air out of my lungs. I gripped the steering wheel, my fingers turning white. That's not, I started, but my voice faltered. Because what could I say? Mia wasn't stupid. She had seen everything. Heard everything. I forced a tight smile. Daddy just needed some time to think. That's all. She didn't look convinced. Neither was I. That night, the silence in the house felt heavier than usual. I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone, rereading my last text to Nathan. Are you coming home? Sent. No reply. I clicked on our bank app, half out of habit, half out of curiosity. My heart dropped when I saw a transaction from earlier that day. A hotel. He wasn't at his mom's house. He wasn't crashing at a friend's place. Nathan had checked into a hotel. A lump formed in my throat, but I swallowed it down. Fine. If he wanted to play games, let him. I wasn't going to chase after him. At least, that's what I told myself. But as the night stretched on, I found myself reaching for my phone again. Me. You're being ridiculous. You know that, right? Me. This is hurting the kids more than me. Just come home. I stared at the messages, waiting for the 3 dots to appear. They never did. By midnight, I was pacing the bedroom, my thoughts spiraling. He was mad. Fine. He needed space. Fine. But why did this feel different? Nathan wasn't dramatic. He didn't do silent treatments. He didn't storm out and refuse to answer texts. And yet, here I was, alone. I laid in bed, staring at the empty space beside me. For the first time, a terrifying thought crept in. What if this time he wasn't coming back? By the 3rd day, I couldn't pretend anymore. Nathan wasn't just taking space. He was gone. I kept checking my phone, my stomach twisting every time I saw the same thing. No new messages, no missed calls. I called him twice that morning, straight to voicemail. By noon, I wasn't just frustrated. I was scared. Because Nathan never ignored me for this long. I sat at the kitchen table, fingers drumming against my coffee mug, staring at the last text I had sent him. Me. At least tell me if you're okay. Still nothing. A sharp knock at the door jolted me out of my thoughts. My heart jumped. I raced to the door, yanking it open, half expecting Nathan to be standing there. But it wasn't him. It was his mom. My stomach dropped. Erin, she said, stepping inside before I could even process what was happening. Where's Nathan? I blinked at her. I was hoping you knew. Her expression darkened. He hasn't answered my calls either, but I did get a message from him this morning. She pulled out her phone, scrolling before turning the screen toward me. I felt the blood drain from my face. Nathan, I'm staying somewhere for a while. Please don't worry. That was it. No explanation, no time frame, just a goodbye without saying goodbye. My hands started shaking as I handed her phone back. Did he say anything else? She sighed, studying me. No, but Erin, what happened? I clenched my jaw. We fought, that's all. Her eyes narrowed. That's not all. I swallowed hard. I might have said something I shouldn't have, in front of the kids. Her face fell. I expected her to yell at me, to say it was my fault, but instead she just shook her head. Oh, Erin. And somehow that hurt more than if she had screamed at me. Because in that moment, I knew. Nathan wasn't just taking space. He was deciding if he even wanted to come back. And for the first time since he left, I truly felt afraid. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind raced. Where was he? What was he thinking? Was he coming back? I hated not knowing. I wanted to be mad. I wanted to call him a coward for leaving like this, for making me the bad guy. But no matter how many times I tried to twist it in my head, I couldn't escape the truth. Nathan was done waiting for me to realize what I had. And for the first time in years, I was the one chasing him. The next morning, after dropping the kids off at school, I drove straight to the hotel. I didn't care how desperate it made me look. I needed to see him. When I stepped inside, the lobby smelled of coffee and fresh linen. A young woman behind the counter greeted me with a polite, practiced smile. Good morning. How can I help you? I gripped my purse strap, my heart pounding. I'm looking for my husband, Nathan Carter. He's staying here. Her smile didn't falter. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we can't disclose guest information. I clenched my teeth. Please, I know he's here. She hesitated, glancing at something behind me. I turned and froze. Nathan, standing by the elevator, dressed in the same jeans and gray hoodie he always wore on weekends. His hands were shoved into his pockets and his face was unreadable. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then, finally, he sighed and walked toward me. My throat tightened as I took him in. He looked lighter. Not in a good way, not in a bad way. Just different. Like something had shifted inside him. Aaron, he said, his voice calm. Too calm. I let out a shaky breath. Nathan, can we talk? He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Let's go outside. I followed him to a small patio area behind the hotel. The morning air was crisp, and the sound of distant traffic filled the silence between us. Nathan leaned against the railing, arms crossed. I figured you'd come eventually. I swallowed. Nathan, what are you doing? His lips pressed together. What do you mean? This, I gestured at him, the hotel, ignoring my calls, leaving, making your point by disappearing for days. What are you trying to prove? His jaw tightened. I'm not trying to prove anything, Aaron. I just needed time to think. I let out a bitter laugh. Think about what? Whether you even want to come home? He didn't answer. And that silence. God, that silence hurt more than anything he could have said. Nathan. I stepped closer, my voice softer. I was mad. I said something stupid, but you know I didn't mean it. His eyes finally met mine. Didn't you? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because the truth was, a part of me did mean it. Not because I thought he was a bad father, but because I was angry, resentful, and I wanted to hurt him in that moment. Nathan shook his head. Aaron, do you even realize how much I've let go over the years? How many times I've swallowed things just to keep the peace? But that night, hearing you say that in front of our kids, that was different. I clenched my fists. So what? You're just done? You're throwing everything away over one fight? Nathan exhaled. Aaron, this isn't about one fight. It's about all of them. It's about how I don't think you even see me anymore. I've spent years trying to be enough for you, and somehow I never am. His words landed like a punch to the stomach. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he was enough, that I loved him, that I appreciated him, that I didn't want to lose him. But saying those things now, after everything, they would just be words. Nathan rubbed his face, looking exhausted. I love our kids more than anything. And I love you, Aaron. He hesitated. But I don't know if love is enough anymore. My breath caught. No, I whispered, stepping forward. Nathan, please. He shook his head. I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to spend the rest of my life being the husband who's always wrong, always falling short. I could feel the tears burning my eyes. I can change, I choked out. I'll do better. We can fix this. Nathan studied me, and for a second, just a second, I thought I saw something flicker in his expression. Hope? Maybe. Or regret. Then he exhaled. I don't know, Aaron. I don't know if we can. And just like that, the certainty I had always clung to, the certainty that Nathan would always be there, was gone. Nathan didn't come home that night. Or the next. For the first time in our marriage, I was truly alone. The silence in the house was unbearable. Every room felt too big, too empty. The kids sensed it too. Mia barely spoke, and Lucas kept asking when Daddy was coming back. I gave them the same answer every time. Soon, baby. Daddy just needs some time. But I didn't believe it anymore, because time wasn't fixing this. Time wasn't undoing what I said, and Nathan wasn't answering my calls. By the end of the week, I found myself driving past the hotel, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I could have gone inside, could have asked to see him. But what would I even say? That I was sorry? That I didn't mean it? That I would change? He had already heard it all before, so I drove home instead. I spent the next 2 days thinking about everything. Every fight, every moment I dismissed him, every time I made him feel like he wasn't enough. And for the first time, I saw it from his side. The way I nitpicked, the way I controlled everything, just to feel like I was the only one who could hold things together. The way I blamed him instead of asking for help. The way I had pushed him away and never once stopped to wonder if he would leave. By Sunday, I couldn't take it anymore. I texted him, "Me, I don't deserve another chance, but if you're willing to talk, I'll listen this time." I didn't expect an answer. But 20 minutes later, 3 dots appeared. "Nathan, okay, let's talk." My breath caught. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a promise. But it was something. And for the first time in days, I allowed myself to hope. Some mistakes don't come with second chances. Sometimes, by the time you realize what you had, it's already slipping through your fingers. Nathan was willing to talk, but not everyone waits. Not everyone gives you the chance to fix what you broke. So ask yourself, are you pushing away the people who love you without realizing it? Before it's too late. If this story made you think, hit that like button so more people can see it. Drop a comment. Have you ever regretted something you said in the heat of the moment? Let's talk. And if you want more stories that hit deep, subscribe and check out the next video. You won't want to miss it.